Today I want to show you this. It's the new for autumn 2024 Challenger stove from British stove manufacturer Archer Fires. This is the first compact fireplace stove that Archer Fires have made, with all their other stoves being taller and more cylindrical in appearance. That said, you can still see some of those design cues in the Challenger, with its curved side panels and subtle curves on the inside of the door. Now let's take a look at some of the key features of the Challenger stove. It's got a nominal output of 5 kilowatts, with an operating range between 4 to 6.5 kilowatts. It's got an incredibly high efficiency of 86%, surpassing the eco design requirements. It's also DEFRA exempt appliance, meaning it can burn wood cleanly inside of smoke control zone. Now the Challenger has been designed to operate either as a dedicated wood burner, as we have it today, using the control here on the left, or it can be used with smokeless coal using the controls on the right. Inside the stove you will see this thick and heavy multi-fuel grate. The grate is needed when you're burning smokeless coal as it allows air to come up from underneath and into the fuel bed. That is done by this right hand control here, otherwise known as the primary air supply. If instead you only plan to burn wood, then don't let this put you off, as you can use the primary air to get the fire going without the need to leave the door ajar when lighting. And once lit, you simply shut the primary air off by moving the slider all of the way to the right and control it using the left hand control lever, which is the secondary air. The benefit of this is that when it comes time to empty the ash, you now have a larger and convenient pan underneath the grate to help reduce the mess. Looking at the stove's design, and you will see a combination of steel and cast iron has been used on the Challenger. The stove body itself is steel, that's the side, top, base and feet. More on those later, while the door is made of cast iron. Now this is a choice at the heart of all Archer Fires' design philosophy and something that we see on all of their solid fuel stoves. The cast iron feels smoother to touch than other stoves, and that's because the door has undergone a secondary process to refine the finish further, which really adds a touch of elegance to the look. I particularly like the curves on the inside here as it rolls into the glass. These two elements combined, in my opinion, give the Challenger a much more refined look. Size-wise, we're looking at 54 centimetres in width, 36.5 centimetres in depth, and the height on this leg's made 64 centimetres. As mentioned, this is the short leg version. There's also a taller leg version available for larger openings, and a log store version too, both of which stand at 76 centimetres high. And at this height, there's the option to have this stove installed outside of a fireplace opening, which leads me on to a hidden detail of this stove, which is that the sides are actually convector panels, meaning that there's an air gap between the outer steel panel and the inner stove body. Now this air gap reduces the outside surface temperature, which in turn lowers the distances to combustibles compared to a more traditional radiant style stove. When it's installed in a fireplace opening, this is perhaps less of a concern, as typically fireplaces are made from non-combustible materials. But if you're fitting it on the long legs or a log store outside of the fireplace, this reduced clearance has suddenly become much more important. Now if we combine that with the pre-fitted heat shield that comes with the stove, and it can be doubled up to a secondary heat shield for the back, and you can even add a third heat shield if you have it with the log store version, then the Challenger's appeal becomes much more widespread. The convection panels not only reduce the clearances of the sides of the stove, but they also help with the airflow inside of a fireplace opening, as cool ground air is brought in under the stove, through the side panels, up, across the top and out through the top. It can exit out above the door here, but there's also convection holes in the top of the stove as well. I like the fact that these holes have been set far enough away from the flue so that if you need to install the stove on an insulated twin wall pipe, it's not going to affect the airflow coming out of them. Speaking of flues, now the Challenger has a 125mm or 5-inch top outlet, and because it is DEFRA exempt, it can be run on a 5-inch liner system if your chimney requires it. There's also an optional external air manifold kit that can be ordered for the stove so that it can be connected to an outside air supply directly should your room require that. The controls on this stove, as mentioned, are located at the front here, and despite their short range from left to right, you can see the impact that they have on the flames inside. So this is primary fully closed, secondary is partially open. I'm going to fully open both of them to flood the firebox with air, and then I'm going to shut them all off. So secondary fully open, primary open. You can see immediately the effect that has. Way too much air for what we need here. So this is primary fully closed, and then secondary fully closed. As you can see that, it pretty much puts the fire out. We're just getting the gases taking off of it now. This is not the way to burn a stove. You're going to get, you can sort of see some sort of black smoke coming off of it. It's starving the fire of oxygen. You've got all that heat built up inside it, and now it's got very little air going in to be able to burn efficiently. So we always want to have this just slightly open. One of the nice things I like about this stove is that the air controls, you have so much control in such a short range. You're not sort of moving a dial all the way around or moving a slider really far left to right. It's all in a really short window. The most important elements of any stove is the door handle, and on the Challenger that's located down here on the bottom. Now, despite this stove having been on for a few hours now, this handle still remains cool to touch thanks to its lower down position. Now, some stoves can achieve this with a detachable handle, but they can be somewhat fiddly to relocate when you need to open the door, and there's always the chance of misplacing it. So it's nice that we don't have to worry about that with this one. The handle feels strong in hand, and the grooves give it a nice grip when I grab hold of it. It feels nice and positive as I shut the door. You can tell that the door is cast iron from moving it. Now, that's not to say that it's heavy, but you can feel that it's solid when you open and close the door. The handle we have here is shown in black, but it's also available in stainless steel. The stove itself comes in this nice metallic black finish, with a little bit of a fleck in the paint so you can look closely. Looking back inside the stove, and you can see that the round log retaining bars can be easily removed for maintenance, as can the fire bricks and baffle plate, which can be useful should you not have the space to install a sweeping hatch above the stove in the pipe, because you can sweep from within. So that's a quick look at the Challenger Multifuel Convector stove from Archer Fires. Now, Archer is a brand that I work with closely as an agent, establishing a network of retail showrooms for them, one of which I'm filming from today. So a big thank you to Sam and the team here at Kent Heating Solutions in Edenbridge in Kent for having me today. If you're local and you wish to see the Challenger burning, be sure to call in and see them, or visit the Archer Fires website where you'll see a list of displaying showrooms around the UK. If you have any questions about the Archer Challenger, be sure to drop them in the comments below. And if you're new here and found this video useful, consider dropping it a like and subscribing to the channel. On the screen now, you will see some more stove spotlights, as well as some useful Woodburner insights from showrooms around the UK, so that you can get the most from your stove and discover the wide selection of wood burning stoves that are available, from fireplace stoves like this to 360-degree masterpieces and everything in between.